Well, hello, it is Mr. Arnold here at you with another history video. Now, today we're going to be talking about Pennsylvania. Well, Pennsylvania. It almost reminds me of pins and lasagna. Two great things. One for the stomach and one for the knowledge. But anyways, Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania was created by this guy by the name of William Penn. I know, mind is blown. Pennsylvania, William Penn. Who would have guessed that Pennsylvania would have had some man's name in it? Just like all the other colonies, pretty much. But anyways, that's besides the point. All right, so William Penn was this pretty wealthy dude. And he was kind of friends with King Charles. Now, the reason why is because back in the day, William Penn's dad actually gave the king a small loan of about $1 million. I'm just kidding. That's a Trump joke. But anyways, basically gave the king a small loan. And not really small. It was actually a big loan. And so the king kind of owed it to this family to pay it back. Now, William Penn was a smart dude. And he thought that, man, you know, instead of money, I wonder if I can get some land over in America and make my own colony. And then I can make loads more money than what the king would owe me. And so he went up to the king and said, hey, man, dude, you know that loan that you owe my family? Well, I'll just take it away if you give me, you know, some of this land over there in America. And so the king was actually like, oh, yeah, dude, this is I don't have to pay this guy back. I just have to give him some of this land. Sure. So he gave him this land, and so the land stretched inwards from the Delaware River. Now that's a lot of land. That is almost as big as England itself. So pretty darn big. Now this land would be home eventually to the Quakers. Now William Penn was actually one of these Quakers themselves. Now, the Quakers believed that they could find an inner light within themselves, meaning that they could basically, each person, you know, could kind of experience their own religious truth directly from God himself. This would be a problem in England because in England they believed, and especially the Church of England, was like, okay, well, you need to go to church, and we need these pastors. Now, these Quakers come in here in the whole mix of things and says, yo, you don't need a pastor. You don't need a church service. You just need the Lord Jesus. And so they really didn't like that because the Quakers were starting to get rid of the church aspect of it, of the whole, you know, like the physical church aspect and preacher part of it, because they believed that God saw everyone equal in everyone's eyes, and that there was no really need for someone of higher power and religious wise to tell me what I need to learn. And so they're like, well, we don't need a preacher to, you know, say, oh, your sins are forgiven. Well, we can just talk to God directly ourselves. And so that kind of got rid of that whole idea of the preacher needs to be there in order to talk to God kind of thing. And so these Quakers, they started to upset some people because at the time, you know, the church is big and the church has a lot of political power. And whenever you start saying that you don't need the church and you call yourself a Christian at the time, there's some people that get a little upset. So some examples of this kind of stuff that they did that people didn't like was that they wouldn't actually take their hats off for the lords and ladies. Back in the day, if you saw someone of upper class, you would always, if you were lower class and really upper class, you'd take your hat off to them as they walked by. The Quakers did not. They did not believe that that person was any better than Joe Schmo on the street. So they never took their hats off for those people. And so that made people mad as well. And one last thing that kind of was like a little weird, and it really didn't make people mad, but it was just different, is that they were pacifists, meaning they did not want any fighting at all. Now, they were jailed, they were fined, as well as beaten and killed for their beliefs. And so they were trying to find a way out so that they could practice their own kind of belief system. And what better way than Pennsylvania? So William saw this idea of Pennsylvania as being the kind of holy experiment. He saw it as this way of the people that were Quakers to get out and be safe, be free to practice what they believed in. And that was awesome at the time. Because remember, there really wasn't very many other places. I mean, there was a couple other colonies, but they wanted to kind of start their own. And so in 1682, Penn came over to America to basically watch his first little city, Philadelphia, which also means the city of brotherly love, being built. He also believed that natives lived there first, meaning that was their land. And he did not believe in just taking it from them. So he had, when people came over, he made sure that they paid the Native Americans for their own land. This was totally different from what most other people did. Most other people just said, get out of here, this is ours. No, William Penn was very, very nice. Again, he was a pacifist. And so he basically said, hey, we will pay you for land. And the Native Americans were very, very friendly with them for a time being. And so by the year 1683, just 1 year after the city was built, there was already 3,000 people living in it. There was all kinds of different people. You had Dutch people, you had Irish, you had English, all kinds of European people, as well as Native Americans. So in 1701, Penn finally had this idea where, you know what, I'm going to make it so that my own people can represent themselves in our kind of legislative assembly. And so he let people elect certain people or other citizens of Pennsylvania to kind of help lead their country and give them guidance and start making laws for them. There's also this the southernmost part of Pennsylvania. They would call this the three lower counties. Now the three lower counties eventually in 1704, just 3 years later, would also be given their own legislator. And eventually this would allow this kind of lower area to be broken off and turned into Delaware. And that's kind of how Delaware came about. So there you have it. We've talked about Pennsylvania today and a little bit about Delaware. Again, Delaware is really small. There's not too much that we're going to talk about with its creation other than it was part of Pennsylvania at once. And then it kind of separated. It got its own little kind of law system and it became its own little colony, which is awesome. All right, well, that is all we got today. And I will see you all in the next video.